track. Flip it from a track to a plot full of acres. Do it for the farmers and the producers and the makers. What we even here for? Occasionally I ask it. I know it's more than struggling, anticipating the casket. Reap what we sow, trying to fill up my basket. Life's a plantation, I self-law and master. Over the plot I've been granted on this planet. Now it's slanted, cause the chosen been supplanted. But if you overstand it, it was spoken. Fractured, but we ain't broken. Even though some would rather play the role of token, we growing. Black through the essence of a presence. We carry the blood of gods, we carry the mind of peasants. Rich black gardens, future look more like Eden. Multiply seeds like the seed banks in Sweden. Rep my planners on plan according to season. B1 code, switching it up is treason. Black power, family what we eat. Either we get fed or we feed. B1AG.
What's going on? What's going on? What is going on? Welcome back to the B1AG Daily Bread Podcast Show, where we focused on Black agricultural production, marketing, food, nutrition, economics, as it pertains to our Black family and community. I'm John Henry Harris, and we also have Farmer Brown, the MC. Now, a few months ago, the government passed a very comprehensive debt relief bill, farm debt relief, black farm debt relief bill. It's supposed to help try to right some of the wrongs for black farmers that they had to face at the hands of the USDA. I'm talking about systematic racism. I'm talking about denying farmers loan. Talking about taking black farmers' lands, and this is going over decades and decades. This is the black farmers' civil rights fight. All right. Now, this farm bill was supposed to help try to right some of the wrongs, and since it's been passed, no money, no debt has been relieved. There has been no debt relief as of yet, and there have been the USDA has been sued by white farmers claiming anti-white racism against the bill because they said they don't have access to this debt relief that they don't even want. But now we have the banks who are going to receive this money. I'm talking about $4 billion. The bank's going to they're turning down $4 billion and fighting against this debt relief bill, saying that they're going to lose money. So today we're going to today we're going to talk about the economic lynching. Banks are pushing back against black farm debt relief. And hopefully within this discussion, we can show you the different ways and just give you a more direct line and view of how the government, these entities play these games and we lose out. Black Farmer Brown MC. Let's dive deep in this and let's make it plain for them. Because we called this out from the beginning.
I got to correct you, bro. You said relief for black farmers. It was for farmers of color.
My bad. Farmers of color.
Trick bag one. Farmers of color. Very vague. Under farmers of color, according to the 2501 back in 1999, that includes Asians, Hispanics, Pacific Islanders, Indians, Native Americans, immigrants, and refugees. Trick bag one. It wasn't a bag. And so there wasn't going to be this so-called economic tsunami going on these farmers. It was basically debt relief, not from everybody that you've accrued debt from. It was just agencies working with the U.S. government. That's a whole nother story with in and of itself, how this suddenly became a problem. You would think that this was discussed before the bill went into motion, what this would look like economically. You would think, with the taxpayers, us as taxpayers, we tend to forget that the government is service. They're servants. When people take their oath of office, they're not taking an oath to run you. They're not taking an oath to boss you around. They're taking an oath to be servants. And so in all of this word salad that we've gotten throughout the months, and oddly enough, it's gone silent since March. We keep saying we challenge everybody to Google farmer of color relief since March, and you don't see anything about it. I know professionally there's all sorts of farmers reaching out. Hey, how do we apply? How do we know, how to get involved? How do we get some more information on the program? And it's been silence. You can hear crickets. And so once again, we really need to deep dive into the specifics of it. I want you to play this video real quick, and we have some very interesting numbers. But to make it real simple, as you said, a farm operation is very extensive. Data, obviously, you have your multi-year plan of, I'm going to produce something this year that's going to be sold to a buyer somewhere. And unfortunately, the large buyers in America are from overseas. And so we don't necessarily have formidable localized markets as of yet. This is one piece of the B1AG conversation that we really want to instill into the people's mind. We have to localize our economies. We have to localize our markets. Two, when you're thinking about all of these costs, you're talking about your seeds, you're talking about your soil, just getting your soil and your land right. You're talking about farm equipment. I mean, some of these tractors can go up to $100,000. That's just the tractor alone. We're not talking about the farm implements, the harvester, the seeders, the irrigation. All of these are things that are necessary in farming. And when you think about the economics, the prices are continuously going up. We've been talking about the shortage on supplies and the kinks within the supply chain. So anytime this happens, obviously us as consumers, we get hit at the store, but can you imagine those that are producing? In the conversation, what we call black farmers, can you imagine how they're suffering on their end of producers? Let's put this in perspective. Right now in North America, there are 3.5, depending on numbers, between 3.2 to 3.5 million total farmers. This is out of the 50 states, 3.2 to 3.5 million total farms. Of that 3.2 to 3.5 million, less than 44,000 are black farmers. And I would say considerably less, but I'm being liberal. So when we think about government, when we don't even have really formidable lobbies. We have a few brothers that's been out here like John Boyd and a few other associations. But when you think about the power of 30-some million people versus a few thousand, it makes a big difference in who's going to have a voice when it comes to the people on the federal and state level who's making these decisions. This is why it's important for us to have this conversation, because this doesn't just affect farmers. And I would hope, when we have these B1AG conversations, there are a lot of metaphors to be incorporated when you're talking about agriculture. This is existential to human nature, is breathing air. You have to eat. When you find yourself in any situation where, 100% of you eat, but only 1.4% of you have a hand in the production of what you eat, that not only has an economic issue, but when it comes to the quality of food you're eating, when it comes to your place in line, when it comes to eating, whether you're talking about literally or metaphorically speaking, all of this impacts us. I might have a bag now wherever I'm at across America, but what does this mean if I don't control my food system? That means somebody could easily think about Zimbabwe. They were having to cart wheelbarrows of money to get a loaf of bread. None of these things are abstract. And so we really need to deep dive into this. We're not going to take too much of your time today, but we really want to embed this in your head, why this is important for us to figure out ways that we can support our black farmers, because we see they're being lynched. They're being economically lynched.
I want to do a little housekeeping rather. Gonna have to read our Copyright Disclaimer Act. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that by otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. Check this out, family. B1 family, B1AG family.
Lenders are pressuring the agriculture department to give them more money, saying quick repayments will cut into profits. Washington. The Biden administration's efforts to provide $4 billion in debt relief to minority farmers is encountering stiff resistance from banks, which are complaining that the government initiative to pay off the loans of borrowers who have faced decades of financial discrimination will cut into their profits and hurt investors. The debt relief was approved as part of the $1.9 trillion stimulus package that Congress passed in March and was intended to make amends for the discrimination that Black and other non-white farmers have faced from lenders in the United States Department of Agriculture over the years. But no money has yet gone out the door. Instead, the program has become mired in controversy and lawsuits. In April, white farmers who claim that they are victims of reverse discrimination sued the USDA over the initiative. Now, three of the biggest banking groups, the American Bankers Association, the Independent Community Bankers of America and National Rural Lenders Association, are waging their own fight and complaining about the cost of being repaid early. Their argument stems from the way banks make money from loans and how they decide where to extend credit. When a bank lends money to a borrower, like a farmer, it considers several factors, including how much interest it will earn over the lifetime of the loan and whether the bank can sell the loan to other investors. By allowing borrowers to repay their debts early, the lenders are being denied income they have long expected, they argue. The banks want the federal government to pay money beyond the outstanding loan amount so that banks and investors will not miss out on interest income that they were expecting or money that they would have made reselling the loans to other investors. They also want other investors who bought the loans in the secondary market to get government money that would make up for whatever losses they might incur from the early payoff. Bank lobbyists, in letters and virtual meetings, have been asking the Agriculture Department to make changes to the repayment program, a USDA official said. They are pressing the USDA to simply make the loan payments, rather than wipe out the debt all at once. And they are warning of other repercussions, including long-term damage to the USDA's minority lending program. In a letter sent last month to Tom Vilsack, the Agriculture Secretary, the banks suggested that they might be more reluctant to extend credit if the loans were quickly repaid, leaving minority farmers worse off in the long run. The intimation was viewed as a threat by some organizations that represent Black farmers. If USDA does not compensate lenders for such disruptions or avoid sudden loan payoffs, the likely result will be less access to credit for those seeking USDA.
Meet Chris and Mark.
In the late 19th century, U.S. banks in southern states would sell securities that helped fund the expansion of slave-run plantations. To balance the risk that came with forcibly bringing humans from Africa, as well as our Aboriginal ancestors, to America, insurance policies were purchased. As a result of this, we have what you call Wall Street. When we talk about the job, and obviously, we're all into the bag. This is why courses like the Black Wealth Boot Camp are important. When we're talking about agriculture, it's not just those in the field. Because as we see in another bit of information, so when we talk about subsidies, what subsidies means when we're talking about all of these expenses that your average producer has, the average farmer in North America can't just go in their pocket in their bank account and just start growing. It doesn't work that simple. Like I said, you have hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment. You have tens of thousands of dollars worth of seeds. You have a lot of unexpected costs. And so as of now in North America, direct government aid, this is the government that admitted that, yeah, we've been discriminating against these farmers for years. And, I have to smile about this concept years. No, we're talking centuries. But once again, if we're not able to contextualize when we hear these words, a lot of times it just goes as something that's said in the headline and we move about. But direct government aid accounted for 39% of net farm income, and it rose to $46.5 billion. Yes. This year's farmers on net will derive 40% of their income directly from the federal government. 40%, meaning I have a business, I bring in 100% of whatever I'm bringing in, and 40% of it, if you're a farmer in North America, is coming directly from taxpayers, the government, your servants. What does this mean to Black farmers? What did this bank just say? Well, we're not going to be able to lend to them if y'all pay this off. We've said debt is the new gold. And so there's obviously a profit in keeping people in debt. When we think about the Homestead Act and all of these different policies throughout the centuries, not just a few years ago. See, once again, because we're so detached from not just agriculture, but our place when it comes into production, commodities, raw goods, because we're detached, we can't put two and two together on how this directly affects our wealth. When we say farmers are like the last strongest bastion of black wealth in North America, we're not saying that to romanticize or blow smoke up the asses of our black farmers. This is not what this is about. Land is the ultimate wealth. And so when we're watching year by year, and this little trick bag that's going on now, this is how this has happened. This is how you go from 1 million farmers in 1920 to less than 45,000 in 2021. After affirmative action, after the civil rights movement, after all of these farmers of color and minority grants. I thought it was interesting. I didn't even see that part of the video that they said, well, if you do this, then we're not going to be able to loan to minorities again. So you're basically saying now, if you as an institution, a financial institution who exists off of the back of this group of people who have been discriminated against, and we've come out and told you the truth. Yes, we have absolutely discriminated against you. All of these years where there was unpredictable weather, all of these, offices that these black farmers went to and got spit in their faces, got their applications denied. You came out and admitted that this is what we did. And now, we've sold this bill like, oh, finally black farmers are going to get some aid. We even had a hearing in Congress for the first time this year. And the banks who benefited off of this, their very structures exist off of this economic activity, off of this nefariousness, have the nerve to say, well, they didn't say, oh, we can't lend to everybody. They literally said, well, if I help them, I can't lend to them anymore. If you pay this off for them, because in the bill they said they were going to pay 120% for the farmers of color, which was only going to equate to a few, 11,000 black farmers will benefit from that, this $4 billion package. And so when I say would, as if it was intended from the beginning to actually help them. What I want to contextualize to the family is this is how I can just keep kicking the ball back. And so saying at the end of 2020, the fight was against the government, the USDA. Hey, y'all did wrong. Y'all did wrong. Then the US government can say, well, no, it was these agencies. It was the local agencies. We didn't know. Up here in Washington, we say, yeah, be good to them, make it rain. But it was those local agencies. And so if you were a farmer, think about in the springtime, you have to get your crops in the ground. Farming is you have to be timely with what you put in the ground. If I want a good yield in August, September, October, I can't put my plants in the ground in June or July, right? It's very time sensitive. And so what if I was somebody in late 2020 that heard talk about this possible relief? I'm going to be planning my whole year out now based on, okay, I just heard this government, oh, wow, turn up. They just told us they're going to give us some relief. It seems like they're waking up. It seems like they want to help. And so now I'm going to plan my whole 2021 growing season based on I thought I was going to get some help. And so that can hit you either one or two ways. I might have a little bit in the bank. And since I heard that, I've seen all of these beautiful news stories about black farmers are finally going to get some help in January and February, I'm optimistic. Meaning if I got a little money of my own, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go on and get my crop started. Cause I know, I don't really want to wait until, after March, April, or May. So let me go on and take out of my own pocket. And I'm already struggling to keep my operation going. Let me go on, get out of my own pocket and start my operation, because the government, this government that I pay my taxes to, that I pledge allegiance to, said they're going to make it rain on me sometime this year. They're going to forgive some of my debt. They're not going to make it rain. They're just going to forgive some of my debt. And so as a conscientious farmer, okay, as an entrepreneur, as an enterpriser, cool. Let me go on and put my money up and get my operation started. Or you have those that's like, okay, I know what I want to do in 2021. And I heard talks about this farm bill. So cool. Let me just kind of wait. I ain't going to put nothing in the ground yet. I'm not going to go get no equipment yet. I'm not going to go get no seeds yet, because they told me something's going to be coming. And so, let me just wait. And so if you were in either one of those boxes, guess what didn't happen? If you went in your own pocket, you took a risk. If you didn't start anything, this is another year that your operation isn't making profit. Multiply this 2020 and 2021 dynamic around all of the different promises made. The Pickford and Glickman case. The Pickford farmer out of the Carolinas suing Glickman. So Glickman is equivalent to Vilsack today. A lot of us don't do a lot of history on these characters. We tend to just pay attention to a president. When you think about a factory, a president basically just signs off on what the supervisors and secretaries and what everybody else is doing. This is why civics class is important. It's not for everybody to just, go run and jump into politics. But there's a lot of, once again, people are powerful when they're being truthful. And if I'm being truthful to you and you have no context to what I'm talking about, guess who's left with the bag? Guess who's left looking confused? And so when you have these practices going on year after year, decade after decade, this is how we get down to 1.4% primary operators. This is how we get down to 0.4% ownership of land in a country with 1.9 billion acres.
All right. Now we're talking about credit, right? Farmer Brian, do you have credit cards? Well,
A long time ago, leave them alone.
but this is the way credit works, right? If you as a person with a credit card or a line of credit do not pay back or slow to no payback on your loan, what happens to your credit score? Does it go up or down? Down, right? So when you repay back a loan quickly or just repay it back, what happens to your credit score? It goes up because you're showing yourself worthy of paying back monies, right? So you paying off credit is good. This is what these banks are getting together. The American Bankers Association, the Independent Community Bankers of America, and the National Rural Lenders Association say that the banks will suffer lost income if the farm loans are paid off early. The banks say they will lose the interest they would have earned over the life of these long-term loans. The groups want the USDA to compensate banks for any lost income. The groups, which represent 52,000 bank locations, added, if the USDA does not compensate lenders for such disruptions or avoid sudden loan payoffs, the likely result will be less access to credit for those seeking USDA guaranteed loans in the future, including socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers. Now, the bill, again, pay attention, y'all, pay back 120% of the loans. That 20% is compensation for them paying off these loans early, right? So then they say that they're not going to loan to them again, which is taken as a threat as well as it should be. They're playing a lot of games, y'all. They're playing a lot of games, and they're showing, and they're also showing their hand as it relates to debt. For real, they want you in debt. They don't want you to pay back these loans quicker because they make more money while you're in debt. They're showing their greed.
My thing is, you didn't hash this out before this bill was even introduced. Your normal layman business plan, you're going to identify credit line. You're going to identify where your money's going to come from before you even submit your business plan. Something as far as legislation. So this, once again, my mind is befuddled right now. I'm like, okay, it's like this good cop, bad cop dynamic. Be mad at them. No, it's their fault. No, be mad at them. I'm going to go through some of these titles from March. Black farmers will receive $5 billion of stimulus package. That's a lie. It was only $4 billion. Biden administration ramps up debt relief farmers to help black farmers. Black farmers continue to thrive despite setbacks. This is all March. After 20 years of advocacy, black farmers finally get debt relief. COVID-19 stimulus bill to provide $4 billion in debt relief. Black farmers will receive billions of dollars in stimulus bills. And so if you're just looking at headlines, just in March, you're thinking, oh man, turn up, turn up. Now I can focus on whatever else is going on because it looks like these black farmers are getting theirs. And it's all culminated, not even a few months later, this is what it is, and not a penny, not a single penny has been allocated to any of this. And now you're talking about legal fees. Going back to the point I was making earlier, okay, so when you're talking about lobbies, your lobbyists are the ones that go to DC or go to their representatives like, hey, this is what we want pushed through. This is some legislation that's going to help us. Keep in mind, 40% of farm income is from subsidies, meaning you didn't earn necessarily 40% of what you're bringing in. It's because the government's helping you, which is what a conscientious taxpayer would assume. Yeah, help our producers, help the people that are producing the food, fuel, and fiber that we need to keep a civilization going. And so when you're representing a group, black farmers aren't getting this. And so this is what I mean. A farm operation costs money. You know, we romanticize like, oh yeah, support black farmers. Go put some seeds in the ground, ride your tractor, and we got food. It does not work like that. You know, you can't simplify it. And this is one of the things why we say it's very important to get our young people now. If they're in fifth grade, if they're in elementary school, get them to understand the process of producing food early, to where as they get older, their minds are focused on, okay, now once I produce this food, first I need a market. Before I even put anything in the ground, I need to make sure I'm going to get it sold somewhere, which is another area in which this bill didn't address. It's okay, we can give these farmers all this money, right? We can give them all this debt relief. Are you going to go to Kroger? Are you going to go to Publix? Are you going to go to all of these food vendors and make sure that they have markets to sell their produce? Because if not, guess what I just did? I just spent a whole year producing all of this wonderful produce only for these markets to say, well, we don't need it. We don't want it. We have to understand the whole seed to table concept on a rudimentary level, on a basic level. I'm 40 years old, and what I can tell you, if there's 10 things to know, I'm at about 2 right now, maybe 1.8. But I understand when it comes to political power, if you can't feed yourself, whether you're talking about literal or metaphorically speaking, all bets is off, and people can continuously run trick bags like this. The optimist in me says they say is what, 44 million melanated people that classify themselves as African American in North America. We're talking about a percentage. A small percentage of that 44 million just decides during the course of my year, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to contribute to making a secure market for these black farmers who aren't getting any help. So that's just the consumer. You know, maybe you have no interest in producing, but as a consumer, I'm a conscientiously make sure, even if I have to pay a couple extra dollars, because once again, I was talking to my partner as far as black soil. People are like, man, why do y'all charge so much? And what is hard to explain for somebody who I'm buying a tomato for you for $2 and I can go, 2 steps down and get this same tomato for $1. Why am I having to pay so much with you? Well, guess what? The black hands that produced this tomato didn't get that 40%, didn't get that 40%, right? And so it costs black farmers more to produce. And so when we can internalize what that means, if I want this black farmer to be able to give me a cheaper tomato, as me, one consumer, let me be honest, one consumer isn't going to make a huge difference. This has to be a communal effort. This has to be a cooperative effort. You have to have very intentional cooperative models. When I'm talking about support these black farmers, it's cool your household. That's where it starts, just getting the conversation going, contextualizing why it's important. Why don't we have whole neighborhoods? Why don't we have, for the brothers that got apartment buildings, are there certain CSA shares that you can work with some of these local farmers to make sure, hey, government, since we got, I got 100 tenants in this building, and we want to make sure we're sourcing at least 20% of their produce intake a year. And this is just one tenant, right? This is just one property owner with 100 tenants. We want to make sure at least 20% of our food, because we got a lot of elderly people in here. We got a lot of school kids that we see aren't necessarily getting their dietary needs met. So we want to make sure at least 20% of the produce that they're eating is coming from the black farmers within 100 miles of where we live at. There's funding for that, but you have to know how to ask for it and who to ask for it from. Outside of that asking, he's got to know that there's a black farmer that's getting support from the investors. That, okay, what if the government says, I'm going to give you this, and then they don't? Either I've wasted a year or I've exhausted my resources, assuming that there was going to be some help. How are we able to make it rain on a few farmers? Is it feasible to support every single black farmer that's out here? No, it's not feasible. Is it feasible to support a larger percentage than what we have? Absolutely. And this becomes a regional thing because with each region, there's different agricultural dynamics. Here in Kentucky, it's the last of a dying breed. Versus when you go further down south, Georgia, Florida, and your Carolinas, there's a lot more black farmers. The majority of black farmers are producing livestock, cattle. We eat a lot of burgers, right? We eat a lot of beef. For people that eat pork. it comes a point where there's so many things, it's not for any individual to tell you what to prioritize, what to eat, how you should conduct your diet. But when we understand our diets are directly impacting this economy, these banks just came out and told you, I need you in debt. I need you to be indebted to me. I have no interest in you building your credit. Really, I mean, I tell you that, but I really want you to be in debt, whether you're talking literal or economic. I need you to be indebted to me. My business is based on you not being able to conduct your own business. Screw a jump shot. Screw it if my favorite team has more championship rings. Our kids can't eat a jump shot. Our elders, they're not going to be fed with touchdowns. It's cool looking good. I get it. I love having a good time, sharing good experiences with friends. But when I think about my kids, like, okay, at this rate, if the government decide I'm gonna do this every year I'm gonna get these Negroes excited towards the end of the year, make them think something's coming, only to pull the rug from them. We're gonna be. I can see how when they do these numbers, we're gonna be down to zero wealth. I see how it can happen. I refuse, as long as I'm living and breathing, to just take it and take it. But this is a communal effort. When we can't eat vanity. When we see that this is a communal effort, when we see that these black farmers' fight isn't just theirs, it isn't just the people that's in the garden, and it's every one of us that eat. It's every one of us that see all of these social injustices going around. When we talk about
I'm
this,
in the middle of a live podcast. Let me hit you back.
Go ahead, brother. All right,
when we talk about these 3.2 million farmers in the lobby going to say Biden, like, hey, we had the 5 in Wisconsin that openly came out and sued, like, oh, we don't like this. This is discrimination. And if you think it was just 5 of them out of 3.2 million that had a problem with that, I mean, we're on Mars. We done beat Elon Musk to Mars. There was thousands, I would say tens of thousands of farmers that felt that way. Like, no, how are y'all going to just give this to black farmers? That's discrimination. Those were just the 5 that put their neck out on the line to say it, no. And so now, whether, if Biden woke up one morning, he gained his marbles back and said, you know what, I've locked all these people up over the course of my life. I've just given all this stuff to everybody else but the people who built this country. But, I want to do something right for them. But I know since I'm the president of this corporation, what feeds a corporation? What feeds a machine? The oil. What is that oil? It's the current. It's the currency. I realize the majority of this currency is coming from these 3.2 million within the sector that we call agriculture. So even if I wanted to do a good thing by these brown people, well, the few thousand of these brown people that even care pales compared to the multi-million, the 3 million of this group that cares. And so my thing is, how much energy do we exhaust as a people arguing? I'm trying not to be emotional about this, man. It's so frustrating because, my frustration isn't out of feeling defeated. My frustration is out of the huge opportunity that we have in front of us right now. For us to all see the numbers that, okay, all of these farms that seem like they're just thriving so great, 40% of their revenue is coming from subsidies. How can we as a people, okay, maybe we absolutely can't provide 40% subsidies to the black farmers, but we can increase what they're bringing in. We can increase their revenue, not only by consuming, directly purchasing from them, directly supporting farmers markets where they're able to enter, but also investments. How can I'm in a large city. I don't really spend a lot of time on the farm, but can I lease some land for you? Is there a certain percentage of your yield that, I can expect to get back each year or after year 3, year 4, year 5? Because once again, with agriculture, you can't jump into it assuming the first year, even the first 2 years, I'm going to make profit. This is a game of niches, and it's a game of time. You best believe when they did the Homestead Act, they were not stupid people. This is on subject, but off. There was a study, shout out to the sister Lisa Cabrera. American kids aren't being educated. Like there's a high percentage of students that are just cheating their way through school, meaning people really aren't learning. And so when we think about, we represent a group of people that have no choice but to learn how to make things work. This is our advantage. If the world is on this big tip of sustainability, we have the advantage because we've been sustaining in these hoods forever now, in what they'll call the projects, in the slums. North American agriculture is in a slum right now. The whole ag field, no matter what color you are. But it is those people, when you break it down to who is able to take minimal resources and turn nothing into something, it is those black farmers, because they've had to deal with this pretty much most of their whole lives, especially the elders. And so as a community, we know we're a colorful people. We know we're a people that like to have nice things. We're a people that like to show out. We're a people that like to, really claim our fame. The degree that we can really embrace these black farmers as a larger part of our culture, I can definitely appreciate that there are a lot more people, coming to realization about, how important agriculture is. But we have to exponentially expand this. I mean, like last year, we have to talk about farming. Our children need to know at least at least a quarter as many producers, black farmers, scientists, as they know athletes. Because we see a lot of these athletes, what was the brother saying? A lot of these athletes get their bag and they run off. They run off on where they, what was it, Kwame Brown? They run off. These are entertaining conversations in many ways, but I mean, the truth is being put out here, people. And we have an opportunity to really not only help our farmers, but we have an opportunity to give our children, not just our children, younger people, right? People who's being shut out of work. Oh, well, you can't get a job unless you get this medicine. We have an opportunity to recreate a more sustainable economy, a more just economy. We're not going to get that justice by asking. Because like the banks just told you, we benefit off of you being dependent. I mean, I couldn't benefit off of you if y'all are able to codify and benefit yourselves. Where does that start? That starts with me not just seeing my consumer habits as my consumer habits. What I'm eating is going to directly, whether I hate a person or not, guess what? If I went to Kroger or wherever I shop at to buy something, it's supporting whoever produced it. I want to get to a point where we don't have to, because we get confused over the word black, right? We don't know what to call ourselves. Are we Hebrew, black, Aboriginal, autochthonous? We don't know what to call ourselves. And guess what? With those conversations, we're throwing off X amount of years. I'm still learning. I don't know, but I know we all eat. I know when those bullets come flying at our men and women out here in the streets, they're not asking what we claim. They're not asking what we pray to. They're not asking none of that. And as long as we're having to go to these institutions and ask, hey, will you be nice to me? Hey, will you prioritize our needs that you've had a pretty big hand in placing these needs and challenges in front of us? But will you forego that effort that you've been on for centuries and suddenly start caring about me? Will you want our children to be healthy? What do they say? Insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a change. Our black farmers, and not just the farmers, but producers, new gardeners, the urban gardeners, the cats around wherever you're at around the country, because in all the cities right now, because I see them, I meet them, there's brothers and sisters out here putting in some good work. And if you're fortunate to be in some of these social media groups, you see the work that they're putting in. But then as I scroll through, I'm going to see a lot more ratchet. And ratchet has a place, right? Can we make food production just as cool as ratchetness? I got a ratchet farm over here. We ratchet it up, but we're still producing something. I'm being funny, but not. This has to become a part of our culture, because this economic lynching will only continue and only get worse till there's no more necks to cut. Then what does that look like?
I know what's real interesting to me. These banks, they're all for profit, but the government gonna give them $4 billion, and they're like, I don't want it. No, they're gonna give you $4 billion, and they don't want it. That lets you know what they really think of you, think of us, because they'd rather have us enslaved in debt than to take money. Now you tell me what business operates like that. Think of a business that operates in that manner. that they would actually turn down money, billions of dollars, and try to justify it.
It's funny, they let them PPP loans go out like no problem, right?
Yeah, but they also, but this blowback gonna happen behind that too. You know, they're gonna start locking up people behind these $20,000 PPP loans, but when they bailed out all these other corporations using hundreds of millions and billions of dollars, and they misuse those funds, those people aren't going to jail. So this is where we're at, family. It's important that we protect our Black farmers. It's important that we grow our own food. It's important that we green up our diet. It's important that we start going back to a certain type of knowledge that we used to carry with us. It's important that we reawaken that knowledge because it is a survival skill, and it's important for us to stay there. Everybody says stay woke. You know, it's become a hashtag. It's trendy to say, but we need to really wake up to what's going on in our environment. These banks, these lending institutions, they're openly in trying to defend their stance. They're showing their cards on what their true intentions are and their true feelings are. They're showing you, telling you, we want you to be in debt. They're showing you and telling you that they really don't want to lend you this money anyway. That's why the farmers were discriminated against in the first place, which caused the need for debt relief and for loan forgiveness, and as well as just general reparations for the farmers, Black farmers, farmers of color, because they were discriminated against for so long. Stay woke, y'all. Farmer Brian, you got any final words for the people before we get up out of here?
We're in a beautiful time. Dr. Boyce and Dr. Alicia are about to tie the knot that has so many more positive implications on our community. There are, I hope this didn't come across as a skies falling situation. There's a lot of good work going on around not only the country, but around the diaspora right now. There's a lot more good work, but there's a lot more good work that needs to be done. We got to do a little bit more than getting in good trouble. You got to do a little bit more than getting in good trouble. We need to really get our prints in the mud. Not only getting our prints in the mud, but put some paper behind these Black farmers, because we see that the resources, the institutions that are supposed to support them, they're coming out letting us know that they're not. And so as a community, how can I expect my community to come to my aid if I'm not coming to the aid of those in my community that are producing? What is the golden rule? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. We got to feed ourselves, y'all. It's not a bad time. Like I said, this is a whole economy to be created. We see all of the chinks in the agricultural sector in the U.S. There's a lot of niches to be filled that just don't exist. Because we see that we learned from this March, this spring, just because we see these headlines that say Black farmers are going to get all this great help. Oh, after 20 years, they're going to get all this great help. How many other areas of society do we keep seeing these articles that are saying we're winning? And then we walk the streets of America. We ride the streets of America, even in the rural areas of America. And our Black producers are suffering the death of 1,000 paper cuts. Farmers are the second largest group of people in North America that are committing suicide. Second largest group. It's stories like this. If you can imagine being 80 years old, 70 years old, 60 years old, and you've dealt with this every decade of your life. You've watched your grandparents deal with this optimism. It's one thing if I didn't expect anything and I didn't get my hopes up. But if every year, every time there's a new administration in, somebody's coming to tell you that I'm going to give you something that I owe you. Not a handout. I'm giving you something I owe you. And your heart starts pumping. Oh, praise the Lord, praise the Lord. How many people said praise the Lord because this happened only for this to happen? We have to love ourselves, people. We have to love ourselves like we love our neighbors. This is one of the grandest opportunities we're going to have to reinsert ourselves in food production. At the end of the day, we all benefit by having a more secure, localized food system that's not dependent on all of this different nefarious activity or confusing activity. Prints in the mud, that's the only way to pay it. It's a dirty game, but somebody got to play it. Get it from the ground, take it back to the basics. It's a dirty game, but somebody got to pay it.
Hey, y'all, if you have any questions or you want to show off your garden or have pictures of you and your family growing your food, send it to b1aghiphop@gmail.com, and we'd love to display it and highlight it on our podcast. And also, we are getting Black to the Garden. You can sign up at healthyblackfood.com and learn how to grow your own food. It's a great program, very entertaining, enlightening, and it's also empowering. If you use the promo code podcast, you'll receive an instant 30% off. Farmer Brown, if the people really want to know something, like not just partially, they want to gain real knowledge, what do they need to do?
If you really want to know something, let the church say, let's learn how to grow something.
There it is. B1AG family, have a blessed day. Be prosperous. I hope you get everything you desire in life, starting with today. I hope we have just a better life in general. Get some sunshine on your face. If it's raining, hey, let that rain hit your skin, man. It's good for you too. Y'all be wonderful, be blessed, and see you in the next podcast. And we're gonna give you this daily bread. Peace out.